Hi, it's Jackie Trotman, and I am here with Paul Silva. And Paul is one of my followers. We've just found each other and connected, and we've been emailing back and forth and have kind of the same just kind of appreciation for our Christian faith and what it means to us and the depth of that faith. And so during this time of this virus outbreak, I had reached out to Paul just because we had been going back and forth with email, but now being kind of shut in as we are, I'm doing a little more just reaching out to people and having this platform of Zoom that's available for us to connect. And Paul's from New York, and I'm here in St. Louis, and we're able to do this. And we just wanted to have a discussion about kind of how we are handling this time and centering ourselves and not allowing what's happening on the outside to affect us on the inside, and how we're having using this time really to rely upon this inner strength and inner peace that God has promised us. So I'll introduce you now to Paul.
Well, thank you, Jackie. I thought probably my first comment should be something along the lines of why I think I'm entitled to an opinion at any rate, because everybody's got an opinion about the coronavirus situation. And so I thought I'd start by saying that in this current time, I have won the trifecta. And what I mean by that is I'm old, infirm, immunosuppressed, and diabetic. So this virus is kind of aimed specifically at people like me. So I don't know if that makes my opinions any more credible, but it gives me the viewpoint to pay attention from a little bit more of a perspective. I've had a couple of transplants that keep me immunosuppressed, so I've already been familiar with some of the, the hygiene things, but this social isolation is new to all of us. I don't know if anybody else has experienced a time in their life where they really had to make a concerted effort to stay away from people. But it doesn't have to be all bad consequences. That this gives us an opportunity to do some things that we otherwise might not have entertained the idea of doing.
Absolutely true. Yeah, and I what I'm reminded of with everything that's going on with, people hoarding toilet paper of all things, and kind of the panic that's happened. Our choir had been on a trip to sing over in Scotland and England. And when we were on the tour bus, there were all these fields with sheep everywhere. And this one sheep would take off, and then all the sheep would follow after it. And our driver said, oh, that's what the sheep do. When one sheep takes off, all the sheep take off after it. And that's all I could think about in this time, is that, it is proven, it's kind of social, I don't know what they call it exactly, but psychology of people saying, oh my gosh, well, that person's hoarding toilet paper, maybe I should do that too. And people are paying more attention what's happening on the outside world. And I think that's more than ever, that's when we have to depend on this inner world and what we're able to control. And I know, Paul, your work is called 3 Steps to Wholeness, and I love that wholeness aspect of that. So what do you say about that, the inner strength?
Well, it's always about the inner game when it comes to your spiritual life, but the analogy of sheep is used a great deal in the Christian environment, and for good reason. If you don't know who your shepherd is, then it doesn't make any difference which one of the sheep take off from the flock, everybody's going to follow. To try to make that more of an analogy that's current to what we're experiencing right now is there are good practices, and just because everybody else is doing what is safe for their health doesn't mean it's a bad thing to follow them. But the sooner you can get what the Navy folks would call your hatches battened down, you get the what you need to taken care of, then it's time to look into, all right, how can I best use this time? And from my perspective, one of the best things about this being socially isolated is that it gives you a chance to think and to meditate and to pray and to, do the things that the busy life of constantly being in interaction with other people kind of pushes to the side. And I think a lot more ground can be gained by taking a little time and doing those sorts of activities than whatever is lost even economically by perhaps you can't go to work. So I look at that overall as an upside.
Yeah, we're certainly forced out of our busyness, that's for sure.
And what you let take up that vacuum.
Yes.
I've heard some people referring to this as a time to just Netflix and chill. And I think, well, yeah, you could do that. And if you're really in need of relaxation, a certain amount of that may make sense. But I'd hate to see all of this time that wasn't previously available get sucked into meaningless things.
Well, and one of the things you had mentioned, I was talking to Paul earlier, because this is our first chance to really talk to one another other than just email. And he was just talking about how he works with people to find their purpose. And I know the world is full of distractions and just like you said, Netflix and even, the social calendars that we keep and all the busyness that keeps us from really finding that meaning or what it is that we truly feel that God has called us to do, kind of like pushing that call away or being distracted or, really wanting to do something, but then just getting too busy and then too tired and then too distracted. So what would you say as far as this time for people to kind of tune into what this might be a time for them to find that purpose? And I'm also a big believer in, the purpose. I used to get stuck on, the purpose is like one big thing. And our purpose, I think, changes over time as we listen to that still small voice and we listen to God speaking to us, that our purpose can evolve into different things. But what would you just say that would be helpful for people now when they do have this opportunity, how to go about doing that?
Well, I believe you have a meditation that focuses around the idea of be still and know that I'm God. There's a stillness that makes it easier for people to be contemplative. And in the midst of the busy world that we were in up until recently, it was very difficult to find a place to be still. And now we have this opportunity where if you're stuck at home, you can just pick a place and say, here's where I'm going to be still, and slow yourself down enough to be able to let thoughts occur and to let God give you impressions of what he wants you to know, and not be so constantly distracted that is difficult to do. It does require slowing down. That's an important part of it. And if you need to, pull out some scriptures or go to some prayers to get you started, then that's a great place to start.
I think also what you really loved as a child, maybe, those things these desires that you had, to kind of tap into those. I mean, I'm a big journal fan, so this is a good time for people, I think, to journal and reflect. And I know that people are afraid of silence, and because I know that silence can also bring up maybe pains or hurts or something that you haven't faced before. And those things certainly do happen when you do have stillness, but that's important to feel those so that you can let those go, which is why I mean, the CDs that I have in the meditations are all intentional, that it's be still, and then for things to come up, and then you can let them go, and then you trust in God, you trust in yourself, you trust in others to help you. It's just this evolution of what happens. So I think this is a really, it is a good time. It's a hard time, but it is a good time.
I think you bring up a very good point in terms of fear of silence.
Mm.
And I have found through pursuing a practice that's called listening prayer, where when you're getting in touch with God, you're not doing all the talking.
Exactly.
And if it happens that he leads you back to a time in your youth, for example, when perhaps you had a traumatic experience, okay, it's perfectly okay with him for you to say, where were you in this? And he'll show you where he was, and that he was with you despite the fact that the situation around you was traumatic. Does not mean that he wasn't there walking through it with you. And that takes the fear and the pain out of that traumatic experience right out of the equation, because he adds his piece where that fear and pain used to be.
I love that.
Hope
That's
that makes
beautiful.
sense.
Wait, I'm sorry, I cut you
I
off.
said, I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. I think
You
that's
have to look
really,
at it in a longer context.
I think that's really beautiful.
And so there are a number of things that people can do. I like your use of the word trust, because fear is, let's say, the opposite of faith. And I'm not being judgmental here at all by saying that when you have fear, focusing on gratitude and trust just makes it dissipate. And it's just a very effective method, you know. So just remembering a favorite scripture, whether it's, you know, be still and know that I am God, or I had, the other one that is relevant to this is just knowing that he will never leave you or forsake you, that he's there with you, with or without a coronavirus, with or without relationship problems. Anything you can be going through in life, you can look to the Lord and know that he is there. So that naturally gives you peace.
Yes. I heard on a podcast the other day, and it was an author, and I don't have his name. He studies happiness, and he was saying how if we, you know, dwell on the negative and dwelling on everything that's happening right now, to your point about gratitude, and he said if you just thought of 3 new things that you were grateful for each day. And he said not just 3 things you're grateful for, but new things that you're grateful for. And the reason why he said that was that it rewires your brain, where if you're just saying, you know, what I'm grateful for, you could say the same things over and over again, and it really isn't going to change any pattern. But I think during this time, yeah, we have to find things to be grateful for. I mean, I'm grateful. I walked outside the other day, the birds are still singing, you know, the buds are on the trees. You know, I saw a new crocus that just bloomed, so spring has not been canceled. Being mindful of that.
I think you bring up a good point, and I have to share that lots of times with all the podcasts and the emails and all the places we get information, it's almost impossible to remember the sources. Okay. But
Yes.
you reminded me of a source that I'm going to share just because you reminded me of it and it's on topic. There is an author named Randy Alcorn, and he wrote a book simply called Happiness. And it's not written from the perspective of the secular pursuit of happiness, which
Mm.
often is a materialistic thing, okay? But the premise of this book is all about how when you go through the scriptures and you see blessed is he or are they, the word blessed um, can equally be translated by the word happiness.
Mm.
And if you were in your readings, just to do an experiment, if everywhere you saw the word blessed, you saw happiness, it would reinforce in you the fact that God does want us to be happy. And just knowing that he wants it, that that's his will for us, makes it a lot easier to be happy in the right way.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, we were told that, I mean, Jesus came to make our joy complete. And
Yeah.
that's why I say that joy is an inside job because we can, that's where our true joy comes from, like you said, as opposed to just the secular view of the world with happiness and joy.
Yeah. That's
So.
a good point.
I think we've given a lot, talked a lot, and kind of helped people, I think, could maybe think a little differently. We have to think differently during this time. All of us are faced with all this being new for all of us, but what's not new are the promises that we can hold on to through scripture, through what God has done to provide for those in the past. I mean, the Bible is a love story for us and shows instruction and adversity and how God has seen everyone through that. So any closing words, Paul, from you?
Well, I would hope, as you do, that this has been helpful, that if it relieves some of the anxiety that people are feeling because this is a new experience to go through. All the experiences that have ever been experienced by anybody in history, okay, were still under the sovereignty of God. And if you trust in that, this will come and go just like everything else has come and gone.
Yes, absolutely. So we hope that this has been helpful to encourage you and that your loved ones, you and your loved ones will stay safe, and we will I'll continue to be in touch and offer as much encouragement as I can. And thank you, Paul, for reaching out to me and for your work and for your wisdom, and take good care too.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I wish all the same for you.
Thank you.